become cons and cheaters and all these different things just because they can. Welcome to the third, possibly final piece in our exploration of the diverse types of people across different racial and cultural backgrounds. We call it the 8 types of people, In this segment, we're going to delve a little deeper into the 8 distinct types of people of color who may not identify as white or Black American, yet play an integral role in our shared society. As we navigate these examples, I encourage you to approach the discussion with an open mind and recognize the complexities that define us all. Remember to check out the 8 Types of People Origins video for a full breakdown of the 8 types in a vacuum. So in each of our 8 Types of People videos, we try to identify a well-known individual wherever possible, as well as a real life example just to help jog your memory. So let's go ahead and get started here. When I thought about the angel, I actually thought about Iyam Tongi. A lot of you know that I did a video on Iyam and I call him the ambassador of aloha. I just feel like he's such a good kid. He comes from such a good family. He dealt with a huge loss as a young man. All of these things kind of put him together to turn him into this angelic being. But I know that a lot of people might not know exactly who that is. Instead, I want to talk about Malala. After her school was closed by the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan, the TP, Malala and her family fled the region, and in Peshawar at age 11, she gave her first speech on the school closings and began making press appearances. In 2012, at age 15, she was shot in the head and survived, which bolstered her fame globally. As a Pakistani activist for girls' education, Malala has become a powerful voice for human rights. Her courage in advocating for education, even in the face of adversity, exemplifies moral integrity and inspires people worldwide, particularly younger audiences. When we think about the model, we think about the angel, we think about somebody who, let's just be real, unless this person just suddenly becomes problematic, it's pretty unlikely she's going to get canceled. We're talking about somebody who, the way that their life has gone, the way that everything has played out for them, it's just really unlikely that they're going to go the wrong direction. In fact, the more power and respect and honor they get, the more likely they are to become who it is that they want to be. These people genuinely care. So let's look at an example. We'll look at Ravi. Ravi is a kind-hearted teacher, a dedicated high school teacher who goes above and beyond to support his students. He volunteers at local community centers and mentors at-risk youth. He embodies compassion and a commitment to making the world a better place. I think that there are a lot of us who know somebody like this, who know somebody like a Ravi, who just goes above and beyond and out of their way and is almost really pure. And it's just kind of like, it's sweet. Really, if you think about it, it's just sweet. It's like you are you, and you believe that what you're saying and what you're doing and the why and everything behind it, that's your real you. Sometimes it can become a challenge when we're so used to meeting people who they're not themselves. They're not them. There's always some weird something going on. Let's talk about the philanthropist or the doer. Someone that came up that I was like, you know what? I don't know if I've ever really heard anything bad about her either, was Shakira. And I thought that was pretty cool. She is a global music icon. She's known for her philanthropy, especially in education. She has a foundation called the Barefoot Foundation, and it provides quality education to underprivileged children in her home country of Colombia. And this really reflects her commitment to making a difference. Another philanthropist that I've heard of who goes above and beyond in their country is Akon. I recommend everybody do a deep dive into some of the things that Akon has done for the people in his country because, oh my goodness gracious. But let's think about somebody who's a little bit more closer to home. This is Sophia. She's a community gardener. She spends her weekends organizing community garden projects that provide fresh produce to low-income families, and her proactive efforts not only improve nutrition, but also bring neighbors together, and it showcases her genuine concern for others. I know that things like co-ops are becoming more popular and homesteading is becoming more popular, but something that a lot of people are unaware of and that I think we need now more than ever are things like community gardens, especially with how food insecurity is increasing. And there's just, ever since the whatchamacallit back in 2020 happened, there's just been a lot of supply chain issues and inflation. It's just really, really challenging to be able to access healthy foods. And so people like this, if you've never grown anything before, if you don't know how valuable farmers are, then it might be easy to overlook someone like this. this. But oftentimes what we find is that people who choose to do things within their community, it is completely selfless. It is completely a passion project and something that comes from their soul. And I just love to see people who move like this. I'm curious to know, have you ever met anybody who runs one of these types of things, whether it's the garden or maybe they do community education and help people buy homes for the first time or something? Like, do you know people like this? Because all the ones that I've met, they just get so excited. They're just so happy to have a chance to show people something that they're good at. And I think that's what we're missing nowadays. People who are the angels and the philanthropists and our next one, the hopefuls, are usually not the types of people that are going to go around bragging about what they're doing. And there's so many people around the world, white, black, Asian, everything, everybody out there. These people just doing amazing things, people who care, kids who decide they're going to go mow lawns for free. There's all these stories, but those stories are not the popular stories. And we have got to start to think about that stuff when we're sitting around thinking about people, thinking about our society, thinking about life. We're missing out on so much good stuff. And also, I think a little bit more of a feeling of safety and security, knowing that there are more good people out there than we're thinking in the moment. Let's look at our hopeful. I used to have the biggest crush on this person. I loved The Rock. I definitely have a different image of The Rock than I think most people do. The Rock, he's a successful actor. He's an entrepreneur, but there's something about his whole vibe that probably comes from his childhood being around wrestling and then his adult years in wrestling, of just being somebody that embodies optimism and perseverance. He often shares uplifting messages and he encourages others to pursue their dreams. He represents a hopeful outlook for a lot of people. And I love the fact that even though The Rock is definitely American, you can't get more American than wrestling, you know? You know what I mean? Even though I've heard Mexican wrestling is dope, but there's something about The Rock and who he became over all these years. I think a lot of people can have hope. The movies and the shows and the stuff he does decide to do, it's usually either really powerful or really positive. And I just think that he just makes people feel good. Let's look at an example of this. This is Jamal. He is a motivational speaker. He travels to schools and organizations. He shares his story of overcoming adversity as an immigrant. His uplifting messages encourage others to believe in their potential and to work towards positive change. And he spreads hope wherever he goes. These are the types of people that we kind of think of as like the one-offs, but there are so many, especially when we're talking about people who have come from somewhere else to America to build their own version of the American dream. There's just so much value that they bring, not just to our country, but to the communities that they live in. A lot of them will go in and start businesses. There are a lot of people who don't get enough credit. In fact, in America, there's a very negative stereotype still to this day with immigrants in general, whether they're immigrants that have been here now for multiple generations or not. And it's confusing to me because do y'all not know what the Statue of Liberty, like, you know what? Never mind. I'm not getting into all that. Let's move on. Let's go ahead and talk about the ally or the unifier. I found it really interesting that Rashida Jones seemed to fit the bill. She is an actress and a producer. Her parents are famous people, and she, because of her ambiguous look, has spent a lot of time in her life advocating for diversity and representation in the entertainment industry. She uses her platform to foster dialogue around social issues, and she promotes inclusivity across various media. This is somebody that a lot of people are only just now starting to find out is the way that she is. People just kind of knew her as like Karen or Ann Perkins. A lot of people didn't even know that she was Black, let alone Quincy Jones is her dad. Like, that's wild. Let's look at an example of this. So we have Aisha. She is a cultural advocate. She works with various community groups to promote understanding and inclusivity, and she organizes events that celebrate diversity and foster dialogue among different cultural backgrounds, which helps to bridge divides. People like Aisha are often the unsung heroes. When we think about advocates or advocacy, you really don't get to see these people in action. And that's kind of the case across most nonprofits or not-for-profit organizations, but these are people who they should have have more of a voice. We don't necessarily just need to be thinking about the protests. We need to be thinking about those people who are actively bridging the gap between those opposing sides and figuring out how do we give them a platform. We need less allies that are just fighting for people who they don't even know, and more allies who are actively in the communities and able to say, I have a list of actual demands from someone who needs it. We've gone through it. We know this is going to be effective. We know this is the change that needs to be made. That's what I think that we need more than anything else. All right, let's talk about the lone wolf or the maverick. It was interesting. Kumail Nanjiani came up. Is that how you say his name? I don't know. The more research I did, the more I could understand where this person would come up in this space. He's a comedian, he's an actor, and he often tackles unconventional topics in his work. He uses humor to challenge societal norms, and his unique voice and perspective highlight the value of individuality and creativity. This is where we're often going to see the example of the lone wolf or the maverick doing something creative, whether that's somebody like a Steve Jobs who's in tech, or Janelle Monáe, or Kumail. People who are often, I think, brushed aside, almost like court jesters or something, are the ones who usually have the most to say. And it's probably because by being pushed to the side, you're able to observe a lot of different conversations. The lone wolf or the maverick is somebody who goes out and they decide to create their own reality in a way, or to bring people into their reality in a really creative way. Let's look at an example of this. So this is Kai, an independent musician known for his unique sound and his thought-provoking lyrics. He often shuns the mainstream conventions. He prefers to create music that challenges societal norms. He represents the power of individuality and artistic expression. As more people embrace different styles and types of music and expression, let's look at the cynic or the downer. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar came up. Even though people know him as an NBA star, as a writer, he often critiques social issues and the shortcomings of society. So his insights can provoke important conversations, but his skepticism about systemic change, it sometimes leaves people feeling disheartened. We have somebody who typically, I think, was known for being very positive and being, this person of integrity. And then to see them in the cynic position, it just goes to show the way that we might view the cynic, if you don't know a lot of cynical people, can be very negative. If you know cynical people, you understand how they got there usually. Whether or not you tolerate it is another story, right? But this seems a little bit different. This is somebody who was typically known to be this great person, and yet there were a lot of stories coming up about how he could be seen in this more negative light. So let's look at an example of this. We have here Tariq. He's a disillusioned activist. Now, he's a seasoned activist. He's been doing this for a while, but he often expresses skepticism about the effectiveness of social change initiatives. And he's got really valuable insights. It's just because he has such a pessimistic outlook, it can discourage people around him. A lot of people don't want to stay engaged because they think, you know what, you're right. Why would I bother? And yet he can't really give up because it's his true passion. He really cares. This can be one of the issues with being the cynic. You might be good at what you do or have a passion for it, but you might also be frustrated, and you may allow that frustration to become your personality. And this is where we as individuals need to be able to get to know the cynics and to get to know the downers and say, hey man, what's up with you? What's your deal? And you may realize, wow, Tariq has gone through hell and back as a dang activist. Now let's look at the cheater. And I thought this was really interesting. The con comes up, and it's this Anna Sorokin or Anna Delvey, whoever, this con artist. And she posed as a wealthy heiress. She was able to access the New York social and art scenes, pretending to be this fancy lady. She was born in the Soviet Union. She posed as a wealthy New York socialite. She exploited trust. She manipulated her way into elite circles. And her story illustrates the darker side of ambition and deceit, raising questions about privilege and accountability. Let's look at an example, This is Elena. She is a deceptive realtor. She's very charming. She exaggerates a little bit though. And sometimes she'll close deals in ways where things that should not be happening. She does create a bit of mistrust amongst her clients and her colleagues, and perhaps even her field. If you happen to have a realtor that did something dirty, or even think like a used car salesman, then that might lead you to have a certain view of people who are in that business. Well, the same thing can happen if you decided that it was because the person was a certain race or ethnicity or color or whatever. It's really important to understand that people become cons and cheaters and all these different things just because they can. The same person could have come around and been a realtor that was really fair and went out of her way to be kind and helpful and was less worried about her commission and more worried about getting good people good homes. That has nothing to do with ethnicity or culture. It has everything to do with who she is as an individual. The last person we're going to talk about, El Chapo. El Chapo is very much seen as like a devil or a villain. This is a notorious drug lord. He symbolizes extreme criminality and corruption. His actions caused widespread harm and suffering. He serves as a stark reminder of the consequences of unchecked power and moral decay. His wife is out of prison and she was like at the catwalk at Milan Fashion Week, and it's just like, people don't care. If people cared, they wouldn't let any member of the family of someone they viewed as a devil into their space. But people don't care. Money is money. Power is power. Morality? That's a gray area nowadays. But this is how people see things. What do we really value? What do we really care about? Let's think about an example of what we might experience, someone in our own life. A corrupt business owner. So many of us have to deal with corruption, negativity, or villainous or devilish behavior when we go into work. Now, for some, it's not our boss. For some, it's not the owner of our company or the CEO or whatever. But some of us have seen that before. Yeah, it might not be like El Chapo level stuff, but someone who comes in and knowingly exploits their workers, engages in shady business practices that could get a lot of people in trouble just to maximize their profits. Once you start to see the truth of that, you have to make a choice. You have to decide, am I going to stay here and be a part of this environment because I too want that money and that profit? Or am I going to walk away? Am I just not going to engage in this and maybe miss out on an opportunity or put myself in a bad spot? But it's anything to get away from this kind of behavior. It is power, ambition that is gone too far, greed. There are actually some really specific common traits that the devil or the villain has when we're looking across these different scales. And even if you go like one step higher up to the con or the cheater or the outlaw, that next level up is also about money. And you start to realize it's never going to be about where they've come from or no. People can come from the hood and be good or bad. People can come from wealth and be good or bad. People can come from any country and be good or bad. People can come from a war-torn country and be good or bad. It's going to be important for all of us to start to look around and say, is there anything that I have taken in about another race or another type of person or another culture that doesn't really make sense? Have I forgotten that they're human? I hope that this can give you something to think about in recognizing that it can be very easy to accidentally stereotype. It can be very easy to turn our experiences into these things that almost formulate our identity. And we've got to assess these things from time to time and make sure, is there anything that I'm doing here that I don't necessarily want to do? Is there anything I'm thinking or anything I've become that isn't really me? Because unfortunately, I think there are a lot of us who have gone through pain and trauma and we just keep it moving. There's a lot of us who have gone through really upsetting and frustrating situations and we just keep pushing and we act like everything's fine when it's not, because we all have so much we haven't dealt with. I think there's a lot of underlying issues. And if we can start to deal with that stuff when it comes to the people in our community, the people in our lives, the people at our jobs, the people we're going to interact with the most, I think it can open up a lot more forgiveness, a lot more openness in general, just to those around us, and a lot more peace. So I thank you for joining me on this journey. I know looking through the 8 types of people of color or the 8 types of Black people or the 8 types of white people might have felt weird, but also kind of redundant, but that was the point. So as we conclude what probably will be the final assessment, because I don't think that I can really go any further with this, I just hope you've gained a deeper understanding of this shared humanity. It connects us across races, it connects us across cultures, and by acknowledging both the positive and negative traits within each group, we can foster empathy and dialogue. Let's celebrate our differences, but also recognize our commonalities so that we can work together towards a more inclusive and compassionate world. Okay, well, I love you. If you made it through this far, through all of these, and you still haven't subscribed to me, please consider it. This is not the normal stuff I talk about. Hopefully you've seen some of the other videos on my channel and you know that this is not going to be the kind of stuff we always talk about, but it was something that I just wanted to get out of the way so that we can focus on the 8 types of people across all different areas of life. If you're interested in that, plus the Stay in Your Lane series, plus just some random hijinks of a cutie patootie, then I hope that you will join me. Please like the video. Please share it. And if you've got somebody who likes to argue and leave 1,000 comments, please send this to them. I could really use the engagement. All right, talk to you later. Peace. Okay, bye.